Should you buy a second home when you retire? Hi, it's financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So this is inspired by a recent Kiplinger.com article, and it asks, should you buy a second home when you retire? And I am very much on team no. I think buying a second home shortly before or shortly after retirement is probably one of the worst financial moves most Americans can make. And I am not talking about, hey, I've owned this cabin in Maine for 20 years and I'm about to retire. That's fine. That's a different conversation. I'm talking about buying a second home, whether it's a rental or a vacation home, near the time one retires. So let's think about it in the context of it being a vacation home. I've got 5 reasons I don't like buying a vacation home shortly before or shortly after retiring. The first is that a vacation home is what Alan Donegan terms a valuable liability. Yes, it has value, but it's also a liability. Regardless of how much you use it, it has annual property taxes, HOA, insurance, leaks, right? Why go into retirement and increase your fixed expenses? Property taxes, HOA, certain amount of maintenance, those sorts of things. You are committing, you're locking in extra costs, outbound cash flow at retirement. Not a great time to do that. And the alternative would be to do more travel and, essentially invest the difference in mutual funds, ETFs, that sort of thing. And look, I'm not here to endorse any particular financial institution in this video, but I can say about Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, their competitors, no one's ever said, I've got this Fidelity mutual fund and last night it leaked and today I had to deal with the plumber, right? That doesn't happen when we have mutual funds and ETFs. I just think signing up for that for continuing costs as we begin our retirement is not a wise financial move. Second reason I'm against vacation homes in the first part of retirement is the world's your oyster when it comes to vacations in the year 2025. We have no reason to lock in a world with flight deals, in a world where you could travel to 7 different continents, basically using your cell phone to book accommodations. The world's our oyster in 2025. We have airfare throughout, the whole world, accommodations throughout the whole world that you can, in your home with your phone or your computer, relatively easily book. Why lock in to a particular vacation destination for every year, essentially, with a vacation home when you have this access and you could vary it up? One year it could be an hour away. The next year it could be 3 continents away, right? You have this ability in the year 2025 to mix it up, to go to all sorts of different places. Why lock in? The other thing about it too is, say you go to the Middle East or Australia or Asia or Africa and you fly first class and maybe you paid a little too much. Well, 6 months later, Delta Airlines doesn't send you a property tax bill, right? It's one and done, and you have an expense and you move on. It's not a continuing cost. Third reason I'm not so fond of vacation homes in the first part of retirement is transaction costs. Think about, all right, maybe you want to book a concert on a vacation and there's some Ticketmaster fee or something like that. That pales in comparison to realtor fees, having a home inspector. There's a lot of friction when we buy and sell vacation homes that does not exist in any way, any similar way when we're booking airfare, booking hotels. All right, maybe there's some resort fee or something that's a one and done and it's not even that bad, this sort of thing. I think transaction costs strongly argue against vacation homes. And then think about a vacation home as you age, right? When you first retire, you buy a vacation home, you're 62 years old. Okay, fine. You can maintain it. You can hire the gardener and take care of the property taxes. But that will become more onerous and more of a burden as you age, as the home ages, and now you're in your 80s and you got to do repairs. And managing that project suddenly becomes a lot more difficult and more onerous. So a vacation home is not the best asset to have as you age. And then lastly, your heirs. All right, you leave ultimately your wealth in terms of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs to children. The administrative burden of sort of dividing that up isn't all that bad, right? Think about selling a house. Think about emptying a house, right? You have a vacation house. That's a second house worth of stuff that your kids got to go through, and who's getting what furniture, and how do we sell this stuff? And then, what are we going to do in terms of selling the house or whatever it might be? The end in terms of settling an estate with a house and furniture is going to be a lot more onerous on your loved ones than, all right, mom and dad own 2,000 shares of ABC Mutual Fund and 3,000 shares of DEF Mutual Fund, and there's beneficiary designation forms, and that just gets figured out. Well, some people say, well, I'm going to have a rental property in retirement. And again, this isn't somebody who had one or has had several for 20 or 30 years going into retirement. I'm saying there's some people who are like, I want to diversify, so I'm going to get rental real estate. And I sort of say, well, wait a minute. Is that really diversification by concentrating risk? By definition, any house is in a limited geography and in a limited economic sector, right? That's it. Right? There's no diversification there. What you have done is you have concentrated risk in the first part of retirement. Concentrating risk tends to increase risk. And is the first part of retirement a good time to increase risk? Not to my mind. You got to do you, but boy, I like the idea of reducing risk as we go into retirement, not amping it up. The second thing is rental real estate's a business. Whether it's a Airbnb short-term thing where people come in every weekend, or it's a long-term tenant, that's a business. And maybe all you need to do is hire a good property manager, but even that requires at least some skill or at least some luck. I just think that as you leave one career and leave a productive endeavor, what makes it a good idea to take a risk and go into another just business? You're just going into another business. That could be risky. And then the third thing goes back to what I said earlier about vacation homes. How is this going to work as you age? It might be pretty easy to be a landlord at age 62, and okay, on occasion they call about a clogged toilet or whatever, but no big deal. How's that going to be at 82? How's that going to be at 87? Right? It's going to become more onerous as you age in a way that financial assets just don't replicate. Oh, they paid a dividend. Okay. Oh, I sold some of it. Okay. Much different profile in terms of administrative burden and knowledge and, that sort of thing that you need to run the business versus holding passive financial assets. So, should you buy a second home going into retirement? I'm very much team no, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below.